Welcome to Workaday Hollywood. My name is David Adams Hood,
And I'm Kevin R. Livingston.
and today we're going to be talking to Bo Price, somebody I've known for a number of years, worked on some short films with, and he is an editor in Hollywood and pretty successful. Lots of reality TV shows, that kind of thing. So I'm really excited to hear from him, and I'm really sure you're going to enjoy this show. Bo Price, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Nice to meet
Sure.
you, Kevin. David, good to see you again.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Thank you.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing well.
Why don't we start with you? Tell us a little about yourself. Now, I know you've been an editor for like 20 years, something like that.
Yeah, off and on for about 20 years. I'm originally from Wichita, Kansas. I wanted to go to film school like in the early to mid 90s and went to KU, Kansas University. I did summer school at NYU. I made like short films in Washington Square Park on film, cutting on a Steenbeck with razor blades and Scotch tape. And I loved it. And I've been chasing that ghost ever since. And around 2002, I moved out here because I thought I could make money editing. I thought that would be easier than making money directing or writing because there were more jobs in it. It wasn't that easy to get into, but once I did get into it, I was able to do it in some capacity for, almost 20 years now.
I think you remember, I remember you telling us that it was kind of your plan B and
Yes.
everybody else's plan A.
Yes, it was my plan B, and it was a little embarrassing to realize that I wasn't even qualified to do it. And a lot of people, it's their plan A, and they're very, very good at it. And it's a real reckoning, to realize that what you think is a backup plan, you're not good enough for. Because most people don't have a backup to the backup.
Right.
And so I was like, well, I'll just do this to make money. And it's like, well, you're not good enough to make money. You have like a year and a half of learning before you could make money. And it's like, crap, it's a long line. And so it was.
So, and mostly it's reality TV you're editing, and you go in and kind of.
Yeah, that was mainly what I did for the most amount of time. The first big show I worked on was The Bachelor. I was an assistant editor first, and then clawed my way up to a night editing position. This is back when they had night editors and a day shift and a night shift. And I worked on that for 2 years at night from 7 p.m. to 5 in the morning, cutting rose ceremonies in Sherman Oaks. That was showbiz.
Yeah.
Now, what was the pay like, though? Was it low level or was it mid level or what was it?
The editors made a lot, and I didn't realize how much they made until I started doing it. I started in the casting department of The Bachelor, and the most I made then was about $1,100 a week. This is like 2003, which is,
that's
you
really
could do
good
it.
money.
Yeah. And then I became an assistant editor and went down to like 700 and clawed my way back up to 1,100. And then for a night position, they offered me 1,800. And I was like, hell yeah. And then someone else says, you realize the lowest paid editor on the show makes 2,500. And I'm like, well, I do now. And also the lowest paid editor actually makes 1,800. But pretty soon I got up to that. And the base rate for the day shift at that time was about 3,500 a week. And so I was used to making 1,100 a week. And so to go to 3,500 a week, I'd never felt so rich, frankly.
And that's real money, right?
It's real money. And, this is 20 years ago. So with inflation, that would be like 5,500 or 6,000 now.
A week.
Which has not kept up with inflation. Yeah, it has not kept up with inflation. People are not making that now. But at the time, I was like, I still had a roommate, and I was like, so I had all this money. That's how I met David, because I was like, I had money, and I'm like, well, I'm going to spend it on the short film.
Right.
And that's how I met you in 2007.
Now, the other day, when we were talking yesterday, you were saying how you can't shoot around LA anymore, like guerrilla shooting. Now, how much fun was that for you to do? Because you really enjoyed that, right?
I loved it. And David, I actually have a picture of you back then in downtown LA. I just found it today. You see that?
Okay.
That's 2007. That is, I think, 9th and Santee in downtown Los Angeles, if anyone knows that street. And I thought it was a lot of fun. And David was a great sport. And I think it's possible, because we actually had the auditions on the Sony lot, I think it's possible you thought the short film was going to have a bigger blueprint or footprint of production. And it was just me and the camera, basically. And yeah, the first day I was like, just run over here and I'll follow you. And you're like, man, this is really guerrilla style. And I was like, yeah. Because that's what I grew up doing. So yeah, and we had like a crew. We had a crew of like 3 people, basically. We had like one sound guy, me, and like an assistant, a camera guy. But there was like no real. We didn't have. I don't think we had maybe no PAs. I mean, it was very bare bones. So but we were shooting on film.
Crafty, none of that, right?
Not really. No, not It was very rudimentary.
Your life doing it that way.
Yeah, I loved it. And it was a lot of fun, and it's, and we were shooting on film, which is exciting, unless there's a problem with it, and then it's excruciating, and you have to redo it. But I just loved doing it, and and David was a great sport. We shot over 2 weekends. It was really hot. Downtown LA, even then, was not the most prestigious place to be, but it was fun.
It was, 2007, there was hardly anybody living in downtown. Right? There was nobody in the streets. What I remember is we were in some corner alley, and there was a lot of, we call it the sweatshops.
Yeah.
There were a lot of sweatshops down there. Most of the buildings had sweatshops, and we were in this alley, and a white, very nondescript van, like typical white van. It was completely armed on the inside. Hold up. Do you remember this?
I don't think I remember that.
And
that sounds sketchy.
A bunch of ladies came. There was like a pit boss person. He comes down and says hi to the van. I swear to God, we had to stop shooting because of this. And they all come down. The women come down in a gaggle, with little tickets. And they go up to the side of the van and they get their cash, trade the ticket for cash, and then back up into the building.
I have no memory of that. I must have been stressed and changing the mag or something. Wow. Wow.
So that's what you see downtown filming.
Yeah.
In 2007.
Wow. And now you couldn't do that at all.
You becoming an editor and director, what were the day jobs you did to sustain?
Well, I lived in New York for a few years, and I did like PA work, and I was an intern at a production company called Killer Films, and this is the late 90s, and they did, a lot of those late 90s New York movies like Boys Don't Cry, Happiness, and, Christine Vachon was the head of it, and it was an exciting place to be. I got to be a PA on an Ethan Hawke movie that he was directing called Chelsea Walls. This is like 2000. And it was very exciting. That didn't pay anything. But then I would get PA jobs that barely paid anything. And you really can't live in New York on these things,
On barely anything, yeah.
Yeah, on barely anything. And so at some point, all the people I knew, we had to realize, like, we have to get jobs like everyone else. Like, we can't pretend to be something forever, And so I headed west. But I couldn't get a job here. And the only reason I got a job on The Bachelor is my sister was a producer on it. And she got me a job. Yeah, she got me a job in the casting department as a PA, a production assistant. And so I did that for a year and a half. I just put Polaroids on a corkboard,
Right.
Girls to be on the show. I was the one straight guy in the casting department.
But what people don't seem to understand about the industry in general, until you get to where you're going, it's the day job that pays for the night job to where you ultimately want to go. People don't understand.
It is. No.
People don't understand that. Because they see the result, but they don't know how you're sustaining to get the end result.
And most things people are pursuing, there isn't a day job version of it, really.
Right.
And there isn't like a day job version of acting. You're either usually acting or you're not, but like there's not, like a lesser paid version of it. It's you're either doing it or you're not. Like there's no kind of in between. At least production, there's something like with editing, especially, you can at least maybe be an assistant editor or at least edit on a smaller show. There's something you can do that actually get paid to do it,
right? Which
is not nothing. And I don't think I appreciated that at the time because most people I knew that lived out here, they weren't making money doing anything, And I don't think I respected enough that I had that opportunity just because it wasn't my original goal, you know. Right. I do now.
So tell me about Flava Flav and 200 hours of raw footage.
Okay, so yeah, after we shot our short film, I'd spent all the money I'd saved up, so I had to get another job. And I'd already left The Bachelor, so I couldn't go back. But I got a job on Flavor of Love because I cut The Bachelor. And for people that don't know it, it's basically The Bachelor, but instead of roses, he hands out clocks. So the girls know what time it is. And I'd never seen the show until I started working on it. And it's, you know, it's different. You know, he's like 50 years old and the girls are like 19. And it's on VH1. And it was like, it was interesting. I don't know that it was necessarily my forte, you know.
You talked before. We talked about going through hundreds of hours of footage to create a story.
Well, that's a good example. So, like those shows, to the extent that they're formatted, they're very easy. So, at the end, there's a rose ceremony or a clock ceremony. Very easy because something happens. They give out a certain number of prizes. The people get them are happy. The people that don't are not. What happens in between where they're hanging around the house at those scenes, there's no structure to them. And so you have to find it. And so that could be hours and hours and hours of footage where people are talking. Maybe nothing happens. Maybe something does. And you have to cobble together something. That's the work in reality TV, is the editors are basically writers. And they're story producers, so it's not just the editors. But in general, you have to build a story out of oftentimes nothing or close to nothing, and to make it have a beginning and a middle and an end. And it's very, very difficult just to have it make sense, let alone be entertaining. And so it's exhausting, you know. I spent like 10 hours on a night shift once just trying to get an opening bite to a scene to The Bachelor, you know, and took that long just to cobble together an interview to say, basically, today's a great day, we're going to go swimming and have fun. But to find every little syllable of that sentence took like 10 hours, you know. And so for an actual scene, it's even more. And that's the editors that thrived were the ones that were able to cobble that together, make something out of nothing. And there's all kinds of tricks to do it, but it's a lot of work.
Now, for you, it's a lot of work, but for the network, those kind of shows are cash cows because there's really not a lot of money spent, right? But they make a ton of money.
They don't spend any money in production. They do spend it on editing, but still, it's still very small compared to what they really spend. They shoot it very, very cheaply, and the only people that really get paid is in editing. But still, that's not enough to break it. You know, when I was on The Bachelor, they went from a 1-hour show to a 2-hour show. And so they're like, well, just make your dates twice as long. Case closed. And they made twice the money. And I think it's been 2 hours ever since. It was very smart. And people loved it longer. But yeah, it's so much money.
Love those shows.
They just love that format. And the more like repetitive it is, people like it more because there's a structure to it, a rhythm to it that they find comforting, I guess. But yeah, those shows, you know, they can make a lot. There's probably made so many now that it's, I don't know, maybe it's not possible anymore.
So now, just on speculation, Bo, how hard would it be to cut the Kardashians?
I don't know. They have a huge team on that show because that's a big show, and I probably know some people that have worked on it.
Come on.
I'll bet it's what they call soft scripted, which is it's not scripted, but it's produced like a very produced thing. Like today we're going to go to wherever, going to maybe talk or argue about this, and then this will happen. You have to have some foundation for it because no one's life has a beginning, a middle, and an end every day, no matter how famous you are. There just isn't, there's no structure to it. You have to force it to some degree. So to shows that don't have a rose ceremony, they're fake. They're forcing it in some degree. You have to.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. It feels like it's somewhat scripted at the time, or there's some kind of a plan.
But I suspect is that it's somewhat true in spirit, even though people are kind of playing a role. You have those cameras on people long enough, you get some approximation of what they're really like. You know, documentaries are fake to some degree because people know a camera's there, but you do get an idea of them probably. So it's probably true in spirit, if not 100% accurate, you know?
Wow.
That's sense. My guess. Yeah. But I admire them truly. I mean, I know people have strong feelings about their fame, but good for them. God bless. It's an American success story, you know?
Well, yeah, they're becoming characters, though. Because I was talking to a guy last night, and we all pretty much did a Kardashian curse, you know?
Yeah.
What can you do? In fact, right, one instant would be somebody would say, well, what's a Kardashian curse? And then you say, well, see Kanye, right?
Yeah.
And then they say, well, he's all right, blah, blah, blah. Okay, where's the first husband? Where's he at?
Yeah.
Nobody's seen this guy. He's 6'7" and black, and nobody can find him. Come on now. That's a curse. That's the curse. That's the Kardashian curse right there. And then you got Lamar Odom in Vegas, dazed and confused. He's 6'7" as well. Come on, man.
We may never know.
No, no. And you see these people everywhere.
Yeah.
The one billboard went by me on a bus, and then I saw it on the roof.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
How many times can you reinvent yourself? And you got six of them doing it. They ain't just one. It's all six.
Yeah.
But I think for you as an editor, how hard it would be to cut that shit.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be.
Personality.
I'm sure it would be a lot of work. It'd be more work than I would want to do.
Oh yeah, yeah. Unbelievable.
I think the thing that people have a problem with, or if I was to guess, it's that it's presented as real or something, or somehow that this is these people are actually having these experiences when it's all put on.
Yeah, I think I get that. And look, there's very few of these shows that I would watch. I mean, some of the shows I've worked on, I would have watched. I think there is a difference between the sort of soft scripted and the shows like The Bachelor, that the soft scripted, they have to be staged. And I have done a stage show one time. I won't even say what it was, but it was the first one I'd worked on that was like this, where the scene where these people are like taking a boat out somewhere and they have some argument about it's not working. And I was like, I don't know, the scene's not working so well. And someone else says, well, did you see the second take? And I said, the second take? What do you mean? They go, oh yeah, they redid it after lunch. And I watched it and I'm like, it's one of these. They redid it after lunch?
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I always check for the second take. And I'm like, see, I don't get that. Like, if you're going to do scripted, get professionals, but don't take the worst of every world and put amateurs and force them to act. But that I didn't get. However, I will say shows like The Bachelor, it really isn't fake. Like, things are forced or like emphasized, but for the most part, that stuff really does happen. Like, the girls really do like the guy, and they really are sad if they go home. Like, and later they might be like, well, why was I sad? He was such a donkey. But in the moment, it really is true in spirit. And most shows I worked on, any faking that was done was not to make something, like for something that didn't happen to, I mean, that occasionally happens. But for the most part, it's usually just faking verbs and things so they make sense. So if someone says, like, in their interview yesterday, we had a great time, at the show. But you need them to say, today we're going to the show and I hope it's a good time. So you would cheat. You would find other times they said those words you needed and Frankenbite it together, which is not, I don't think, ethically wrong because it's true in spirit. Mm-hmm. Now, every once in a while, you might, and I won't say which show, but there was a show where someone said, I love so-and-so, and they're talking about another character. And I had that person say, I hate so-and-so, literally the opposite of what they said. Right. So I have done it, but it is rare. Usually those shows that have a structure are true for the most part. Again, the Kardashians, other things like that, they're staged. So I don't know. It's different.
So let me ask you this. I had a question with a friend, right? And you've been very insightful today, right? In order to get a movie made today, because you direct film, you've done film. In order to get a movie made today, it has to have a gun, a cape, or a car blower. A movie like The Notebook won't be made today because nobody has the attention span to wait for the story.
It will be made. It will go on the festival circuit, and somebody will pick it up and give you a little bit of money for it. But it's not gonna be a blockbuster.
Right. Someone will have to fund it.
Because The Notebook was a blockbuster. It came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Right? But I mean, again, unless it has a cape or a car blows up, nobody's going to go watch it.
Well, I think we're seeing a move from cinema to Netflix to streaming, and you can sell The Notebook on streaming, whatever the modern version of that is. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, you just make it 20 episodes instead of one. You know, and I think
limited series.
Yeah, and I mean that's what I hear is it's easier to get a TV show made than a movie,
Really?
and it's easier, because people want a whole series because there's more content. And one movie, it's a lot of work for a one-off, but the real money isn't, or if there is any money at all, people watch TV more than they go to movies. So those shows are what people like. In the last 20 years, there's very few movies that I think everyone talks about. To the extent people all talk about the same thing, it's a show,
Yeah.
It's like, Breaking Bad or The Sopranos going back like 20 years, or I like The Wire and like these shows like that. But it's very rarely it's a movie that everyone's talking about.
I think also if you have a story you want to tell that you're conceiving as a movie, doing an 8-episode limited series works better because you can flesh some of the ideas out more.
Yeah.
You can go into depth on a couple of characters.
Yeah.
It's more interesting.
Yeah. And people like to spend more time in the universe they know.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about, all right, and I have a question for you. 20 years from now, will there still be 200 strangers looking at a 30-foot screen in a dark room eating popcorn?
Oh, no.
Given where we are today.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Because young kids don't go to movies. Like my nieces and nephews, they'll watch old movies that I recommend and they'll go, but that's not what they're engaged with. So the audience I'm 49 and the audience is my age and older, frankly. And so they're running out of people. I mean, they're running out of an audience. It's getting older and
because I'm more the TCM crowd, right? I like them old movies.
Yeah, I do too.
I can't. The times I've been to movies around Christmas time when they show It's a Wonderful Life, and I'll go to the area or I'll go to the new one, right? But to go see new movies now, not so much.
I know.
I like going to the theater, but not so much. There's nothing bringing me in there. I'm marveled out.
Again, there are some really good films being made and put into film festivals. They don't get wide distribution, but there are still some great films that people are making, and they have celebrities in them, and they do well conceived movies.
Right.
We just don't hear about them because distribution is expensive and advertising is expensive, and so you don't hear about it.
No, it goes straight to streaming.
Yeah.
I mean, even with people you've heard of.
I wanted to talk about kind of as we were wrapping up a little bit. I wanted to talk about industry changes in the last 20 years for you, and also I would like you to get to talk a little bit about your own short films, but let's have that after.
Okay.
So you were telling me before that the editing jobs, because there's more competition, they pay less. It's kind of, and I think the whole industry is finding this as well. Actors, writers, directors, I think set dressers just got a big hit recently. I was reading about, talk about that.
Yeah, I think, sadly, I do think it's a contracting business entirely. And almost everyone I know that does anything is making less if they're making anything at all. And for a long time, editors, people would do reality editing because it paid better than scripted, even though scripted was more prestigious. Like people would rather say, I edit on Breaking Bad or The Office, but it didn't pay as well and there weren't as many jobs. So people would, do shows like I did. But now that really isn't the case anymore because there aren't that many of them. They pay less. It has not kept up with inflation. And a lot of editors they're getting out of it. Like there's not enough jobs for them. There's not enough people to watch all these shows they're making. They're making so many shows, there's no one to watch them. And the only way they can do that is by making them for less. And so even though if the rate is barely the same, what's expected to do it is you got to do it instead of in, say, 9 days, you got to do it in 7 days. And so it's just become such a grind that there really isn't much money in it. And just seeing that, how much in the last 5 years it's kind of gone down, doesn't bode well for the future. And part of that is because the entry level is so much easier. Like when I started, there's an edit on a program called Avid, which at the time, it will cost like $100,000 to have one of these systems. So no one had one. Like the only way you could get practice on it was to have a job and doing it, or you could like go in on the weekends if they would let you and learn. Well, a good part of that is there were very few people entering the market because it was such a high barrier to get in. But now you can have it on your laptop for $20 a month. So everyone can learn it, and people have. And so that means they've learned. That doesn't mean they necessarily know how to edit immediately, but they know enough to get going. And so when shows are, crunched, they'll be like, well, we'll hire some younger people with less experience and pay them less. And eventually there's just no money. And from what I hear, it's the same with writers. My sister's a writer, and, they pay it's just less to go around. Very few people, I think, are making a lot. So I don't think it bodes well, sadly, because it's, what I chose, but it is what it is. What do you think, David?
Yeah, I think, I moved out of LA in 2020 because of the pandemic, and I have 3 kids and was kind of go to be closer to family. But the thing that I was making a living at, which was commercials, I know not paying as much because the contracts for streaming are nothing, basically. Yeah. And as we've gotten farther and farther away from network television, each iteration of where commercials are run, and you would get residuals for those runs, a cable was less than network, and then this now
is
streaming is just ridiculous. Yeah, I think you get paid a session fee for a whole year or something, or double a session. It's just nothing.
Yeah.
And so even that is what you said about getting squeezed.
Yeah.
So talk about let's talk about something a little more uplifting. You're making some films. You're writing plays.
Yeah, I'm still doing it after all these years. I just love doing it. I made a short film a few years ago called Wichita. I'm from Wichita, Kansas, and it did well on the festival circuit. And my friend Serjan Demey, she directed it, and I wrote it and produced it. And we're gonna hopefully finally adapt that into a feature. We also put up some short plays here in Los Angeles a couple of years ago called Slap, Kiss, Kill, short comedic plays that we might do in Montreal or even possibly Paris. So in French, she's French Canadian. I don't know French, but someone could hopefully translate it. And it's, I love doing it, and even plays obviously make even less than movies, but it's just, there's a joy in working with actors, and people that are good at it, and like David, you're a terrific actor. And so like even just doing a couple days on a short film, for me, that was worth whatever it cost just for the memory of doing it. Like there's a magic to doing it. And I've never regretted doing a project, even if I lost a lot. I'd like to break even and even make 5 cents, but of all the things to spend money on, I would always take that and have the experience of having done it. Because it's a magical thing, if you get that camaraderie of doing it, to me, there's nothing like it.
Well, that's the other thing people don't get either about creative.
They don't.
It's a collaborative effort.
Yeah, and when you work together and you make something a moment that didn't exist, even if it's just one little thing for that 5 seconds that you did it, it's a euphoric like shot of adrenaline that people that haven't done it, they don't know what it's like, and it can only be earned. Like you can't buy it. You have to do it. You suffer, and have to put something up to do it. And I think that's what's addictive about it for me.
Well, you're a go-getter, man.
Thank you.
After it's all said and done, you're still in the business, right?
Yeah.
Look,
I don't think I'll quit.
10 years from now, I'll probably go downtown on a visit out here and see you with an iPhone gorilla shooting somebody, right?
Maybe. Maybe.
You don't need the $100,000 machine anymore.
You don't.
Use your iPhone,
No.
right?
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. We'll just have to get some people to watch it.
My last question, and this is one that I like to ask everybody, is I want to give me a stupid celebrity story. That's just like just a stupid story about a celebrity that you encountered, because we all do it.
Like meeting someone?
Yeah, just whatever. I mean, in line at getting coffee, whatever. Just a dumb story.
Well, okay. I was a PA on Ethan Hawke's movie he directed called Chelsea Walls, and he couldn't have been nicer. He was the sweetest guy, and and he had all these celebrities in the movie that were doing it for free, and I was wondering why they were all doing it for like literally nothing, and I realized because they all liked him and genuinely liked him. And it's the smallest thing, but he asked for like a Mountain Dew, and I was like, no problem. So I went in the cooler and I got it, and I was like, drying it off for him. He goes, you didn't have to dry it off for me. And I was like, no problem. And he goes, thank you so much. But he was so polite to me that I've liked him ever since. And I instantly liked him more as an actor, just because he was so personable in such a minor thing, and he didn't have to be. And I never forgot that. And I've heard other people that have met at celebrities that are just slightly rude or worse. And I was like, this is only 1 second of his time, but it meant it truly, I appreciated it. And I would just see how he interacted with people. He talked to people, the PAs, as people. He didn't talk down to them, And then that's my least favorite part of entertainment, is wherever someone is on the wrong, they often kiss up and kick down.
Right.
He did not. And I'll never forget it. It's such a minor thing, but you remember how people make you feel. And in that moment, I felt better than I had felt, because I was just a lowly PA parking vans and whatever and fetching Mountain Dews. So I appreciated it. So thank you, Ethan Hawke, for treating me like a human.
Because I'll tell you, I was an extra, right? That's how I got into all of this, being an extra.
Yeah.
And those Ralph Lauren hats, those cowboy hats? If I see somebody in one of those, I'll punch them right in the face. Because people on those sets with those hats were autonomous, were Genghis Khan, would yell, scream.
Those hats.
Treat you in, you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
And
they always have a big belt buckle.
If I see anybody in one of those Ralph Lauren hats, I just walk up to him, punch him right in the face. I'm serious. To counter.
I think people will probably thank you for it.
These guys are nobody, right? They're at 7-Eleven now. They're working at Walmart, these guys.
Yeah.
With all the yelling and screaming and all that.
Right.
Unbelievable. And I hate the hat. Yeah.
Can't top that.
That's a personal feeling, because when you said Ethan Hawke, as nice as he was, these people aren't nice.
Yeah.
This is not. We're nobodies, right? Come on. I'm sitting next to somebody's grandmother yelling at this woman. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a collaborative effort.
It is. It is. Yeah. It is.
But Mr. Price, I have to tell you, it was wonderful meeting you. Glad
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. This is a terrific fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, David.
Thanks for doing this, man.
All right. Take care, guys.
Wow, that was refreshing. Liked it.
Yeah. That was
very engaging guy. Liked it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he was a lot of fun to work with on the set. I already blew the story that I was going to tell afterward about white van, that inconspicuous white van that completely armored on the inside with lots and lots of cash in it.
Mm-hmm. So what was it, though?
The sweatshop. So half the buildings in that part of the part that we now call Skid Row, back in the early 2000s, still had a lot of sweatshops in them. And you could tell because the top of the building was some Indian guy's name, Patel or something like that. And there were several of these buildings, and it was just lots of illegals working in those buildings down there, getting paid in cash. No, those buildings have become lofts and stuff like that. That whole downtown has completely changed. Really, I mean, it was starting before then, but it really kicked off in 2010 when a lot of those buildings just became worth money again. They were, after the train system was dismantled in Los Angeles, the downtown became a an empty center. So LA was a donut with an empty center. And those old buildings weren't worth the money to demolish them. So they wound up getting occupied by kind of sketchy people.
Well,
And
they
then
call them
starting in
squatters now, right?
no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking they were not squatters. They were doing piecework. So they were manufacturing clothing and
Oh, you're
stuff like
just
that
saying
now.
that there's still sweatshops,
What's that?
or they were sweatshops.
Right. And again, a lot of those buildings in that part of downtown started to get turned into lofts. So
Mhm.
that like arts district, I guess, and
Yeah, but there's still buildings down there that are working out like that.
yeah,
You know, like
yeah,
you
of
go down
course.
Santee's Alley, right, which is probably 4 blocks. That would
Mhm.
be the poor man's version of the Santa Monica 3rd Street Promenade, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that I think about it, that's the poor man's version, isn't it? Because it goes 4 blocks.
Well, it's great. I mean, it's that area of Santee is that Santee Alley is what cities used to look like with little booths and stuff like that. People
Mhm.
selling whatever they could get away with. Yeah, I mean, and you can get tailored suits down there still pretty cheap. People don't know that.
Nice tailored suits, or just, they rip when you walk in them.
Yeah. Oh, nice tailored suits with somebody who's tailoring it by hand.
Right. I don't mean like shark skin
Like
fabric. I'm talking about a nice houndstooth suit. I
you
said
pick out
houndstooth.
what kind of material you want. Yeah, but
Yeah.
you pick out the material you want. It can be houndstooth or it can be shark skin. It's up to you. But the tailor is the
I don't
same.
know about the
The
shark
tailor
skin.
can.
You look like somebody who'd wear a shark skin suit, though.
I do not.
Yeah, you do. Now look at a hat, for Christ's sake. Yeah, you do. Is that a
Yeah.
Kangol, by the way?
It is a Kangol.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it because when I'm driving Uber, I like to wear a
Mhm.
hat, and I will never wear a baseball cap. So this one has the flat back.
So why don't you
Doesn't
wear a
inter.
baseball cap? What's wrong
Because I'm
with
not a
wearing a
child.
baseball cap? What?
Because I'm not a child. Because I'm not a child.
So people who play baseball and make millions of dollars wearing a baseball hat, they're children too, huh?
Oh, people who wear them professionally, but I'm not a professional, so I'm not going to go around looking like a joker wearing a baseball cap.
I see. But
I don't
you,
wear a
you,
football
you
jersey either.
but you have
What?
a Kangol.
Yeah,
Samuel L. Jackson wears Kangols.
backwards.
Regardless, they're Kangol, right?
Yeah. This is more a nod to my English heritage here.
Kangol and plaid. All right.
You know, the houndstooth little thing. Yeah.
That isn't houndstooth.
Whatever that is, the pattern.
Well, it's a New England hat. That's clearly visible. But yeah.
New England, Old England, Scotland.
No,
I would
New
like actually
England.
that would be my preference. This is the closest I could get to more of a English Scottish kind of hat.
Okay. I hear you.
So
How
um
how was
I'm
Bangor? You were telling him about Bangor. I missed that. I wish I had heard that.
yeah. No, I was surprised you didn't jump in.
I couldn't hear it.
No, he was what was I now I forget. He was talking about Bangor. It was because Stephen King uh is from Bangor, or I don't know. Some people say that. I don't know where he's actually from. It seems like every town claims him as
Right.
one of theirs. So it's kind of like George Washington slept here.
But he is
But
from Maine, right?
he is definitely from Maine. He
Yeah.
writes stuff that's from Maine. I was telling Bo that it was I believe the oldest prison in Maine, and it was the Thomaston State Prison, or State Prison in Thomaston, and it's about two doors down, and it was the inspiration for Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, okay.
Apparently,
Is
had
it
something to
empty?
do. What's that?
Is it empty?
They bulldozed it into the quarry.
Oh,
So
so it's not there anymore.
right. So originally it was a quarry in the 1800s, mid 1800s, and they had these holes they would drop the prisoners in,
Right.
and they would pull them out. They just throw tarps over them or whatever. I think I've seen some like wooden shelter construction that they'd have propped up above the hole. and they'd pull them out and make them do hard labor in the quarry.
Huh.
And there's a very cool old prison graveyard over here with the gravestones are sometimes they're marked with a person, sometimes it says an alias or just the prison number.
Wait a minute, you mean a person? What do you mean a person? They're marked with a person.
The person's
Explain.
name.
Oh,
I said
all right.
sometimes they're marked with the person's name, but often it's just unknown or there's a prison number or, you know.
The only thing I did up there, right, that was worthwhile, I went to see LL Bean's grave, Freeport. Me and what's her name had time to go do that because we would go up there, and went to found the cemetery where LL Bean's from. Yes, sir.
Lots of
I am a
cemeteries.
certified Mainer, baby.
So I was going to talk about something that I was reading about. If we have time, do we have time?
Go ahead.
All right. I was going to
I'm
talk
as
about
sick as I'm
something.
going to be, so go ahead.
I was reading something. This woman in England, I think it was American Airlines, has trouble. She's 102 years old, and the airline thinks that she's an infant. Like when she tries to get on this plane, it registers her as a year or 2 years old. Last couple of years, she's tried to get on a plane in England for, again, American. And I realized that it has to do with the Y2K. Do you remember Y2K?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do.
So the problem was that they only all the dates were registered with just two numbers, so 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, like that, instead of
Mhm.
1970, 71, 72, 73, 74, because storage was so expensive. So when we hit Y2K, suddenly people who were older than zero, 2000, would be registered as children. So the way some of the computing systems fixed it was to move it up by 20 years. So now this woman is hitting the hitting the Y2K problem 20 years later.
Yeah. And where she live, England, you say?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's a worldwide problem, or it will become a worldwide problem if they don't continue to fix it so that
But they can clearly see this woman is old, right?
right, but the computer system doesn't register her as old, so it causes problems, identity problems, stuff like that. And we'll probably see more of that. Just like weird little glitches in the computers where people are having trouble with credit cards, or it's usually in banking, airlines, large systems where they're dealing with millions and millions of transactions, still have that old COBOL programming at the center.
Yeah, but if this woman's 102, I don't think she has a lot in the bank. That really shouldn't affect her that much. That's my point.
Well, apparently it is, because she was having trouble getting on the plane because she
Yeah.
showed up, and she was 102 instead of an infant.
I got one for you, though.
Okay, go ahead.
I got one for you.
Yeah.
On my way home last night, I stopped to have a cocktail, right? It's like
Did you get
1:15 in
carded?
the morning. What?
Did you get carded?
Yeah, this is what I'm about to tell you. So the woman wanted my debit card as well as my license. Now, for you, you wouldn't have been able to have a cocktail on your way home because you would have left. Me, I had a nice, cold, refreshing beer, soothed my throat, and then I drove home and went to bed, right? Because I'm not feeling well. Anyway, she said they do that after 10 o'clock. And the reason is people walk out on the check. And if people walk out on the check, they then have to pay for it.
Well, that is understandable. Driver's license is absurd,
Well, you're
but
not going to
I
walk out on your
understand.
driver's license.
What's that?
You're not going to walk out without your driver's license. So therefore, you need to pay the check, right? But if there's nothing there holding, you can clearly slip out the door and never be seen again.
Well,
So I
they
have
can
no
hold your.
problem with this woman holding my license or my debit card.
There's no need for her to hold your license. You can hold your debit card and charge it if you walk out.
I can cancel the charges, man. You know that. And get a new debit card.
How
You
many
can
people
do
do
that.
that?
What?
How many people do that? That's ridiculous.
Obviously,
That's
the ones who dine and dash do it. If it weren't that much of a problem, they wouldn't be holding people's licenses.
well, people come up. No. People come up with all sorts of imaginary scenarios.
Why do you
That
call that
doesn't make any sense.
imaginary? It's a real
Well,
thing. Why do you call that imaginary? It's not imaginary.
that people are going to all the trouble of ordering new credit cards. I mean, there's a whole fraud alert system that's going to come up on that. If you keep canceling your credit cards every time you have a charge on at a bar, uh, you're going to lose your privilege to have credit cards very quickly. I mean, that's just absurd. Who does that? Who cancels their credit? That was a fraudulent charge. I need to. How many times do you get away with that? Maybe once. It cannot be a widespread problem.
You get away with it as often as you do it. You can use your digital card now. What if you got a digital card, no card at all? You're going to hand them
When
your phone?
Yeah, you're
What?
paying them. I just don't understand the if you need. I don't understand the need for a driver's license and a credit card.
I just
That
told you. So people won't dash.
and I just explained to you that the credit card
You can
is the
cancel the
item.
credit card. You can tell them I lost my credit card. Oh, there's a
Right.
charge at so and so bar. Well, it wasn't me.
You can, but again, how many times can you get away with that before the bank says no? I mean, that's
As often
ridiculous.
as
Right?
you want. Look,
No, it cannot. It cannot be a widespread problem. It's just it's mechanically absurd that that's a widespread problem. I think she's making it up. You're making it's just it's a phantasm, a projection of a problem that isn't really there.
it obviously is a problem for this establishment because they do it. And people
Well,
hand
no.
them. And people hand them their credit card and license.
Well, they don't
If
have
you're
my business.
honest, listen, if you're honest, you have nothing to worry about anyway, right?
Right. That's why I don't want to be treated like I'm dishonest.
But you're not being treated dishonestly.
I
This
am if they're
is a
taking my
requirement. This is a requirement to have a
right.
cocktail here. That's all.
Well, then I feel like I'm being treated as a dishonest person. I'm being treated as if I'm dishonest. It's like when I get punished in grade school for what some other person did in the class. That's ridiculous. I'm not putting up with it. I'm
Well,
walking
no.
out. There's no way that
Well,
I'm
you
giving them my credit card and my driver's license, and that explanation is insufficient.
not really, because you know what happens in grade school, right? Everybody gets that kid behind the school and kick his ass. That's what that has. That's what that is. Okay. Now I don't know where you went to school at, but if I got punished for what JoJo over here did, then we're going to take care of JoJo, which is why they punish everybody. So we can self punish. You understand?
Well,
You
yeah,
get
no,
that?
I hear that.
Okay.
It's
All
not,
right. Then.
it doesn't seem
Again,
ethical.
I don't know what they did in Davis. I'm just saying what we did in New Haven. JoJo get his ass kicked after school, period. But I still don't see why you see that as a problem,
There,
just
there,
leaving your credentials with a bartender.
there was
She's
no
not going
kicking of
anywhere. They'll
asses
be
in
there
this
all
night.
night. What?
What's that?
I said she's not going anywhere. They'll be there all night. It's behind the bar. It's safe, right?
Yeah, I just
Sign
don't
your
like
check
being
and off
treated
you
that
go.
way. That's all. I
Is that how
refuse
you
to be
treat
treated that
people
way.
in Bangor? Huh?
I
Right?
don't know.
Yeah. All right, man.
All right.
I think that'll do it.
Well, yeah. Well, I want to thank again Bo Price, and I'm David Adams Hood,
And I'm Kevin R. Livingston.
and this is Workaday Hollywood. Thank you.